I grew up in a house that smelled like soap, stew, and engine oil. My father, Chike, owned a tiny workshop behind our kitchen where he rebuilt generators and fixed anything that hummed, rattled, or refused to breathe. My mother, Adiz, taught music at a public school and ran a choir on weekends. Money never came easy, yet dignity never felt scarce. We learned to share stools, stretch meals, and greet each morning like a guest worth hosting. There were three of us: me, Amara, my older brother, Keen, and my younger sister, Zara. We weren't saints. We argued about chores, borrowed clothes without asking, and blamed one another when the last slice of bread vanished. Still, a gentle current ran under everything. Our parents' steady belief that character outlasts comfort. Father's hands told his story better than any photograph. Scarred knuckles, burn marks, fingernails stained with grease. When he laughed, the sound began deep in his chest and rolled through the house like warm thunder. Tools must return to their places, he often reminded us, tapping a spanner against the bench. So must people. I never figured out whether that was advice or prophecy. The workshop sat under a mango tree whose roots pushed at the concrete like impatient children. On Saturdays, I carried tea to him while customers waited, eyes anxious over silent machines. Keen built shelves, pretending not to enjoy the orderliness. Zara drew designs on scraps of cardboard, logos for a future Chike and children, enterprise that would one day conquer the neighborhood. Father would wink at her. One day, he'd say, not meaning wealth, but workmanship. Then his chest tightened one humid afternoon in July. He waved off the pain, finished a repair, and collapsed beside the bench anyway. He didn't return from the hospital. The world shrank to the size of a corridor where relatives whispered and paper cups went empty too quickly. The funeral moved like weather: prayers, hymns, plates, sympathizers speaking softly about kindness and patience, and how a man's legacy isn't counted in bills, but in grateful neighbors. It sounded noble. It didn't pay for anything. Grief changes a family's temperature. Our home cooled. Mother's humming stopped. Keen stopped cracking jokes. Zara learned silence. I kept busy, because motion sometimes looks like stability from a distance. Nights stretched long. Mornings arrived early and without ceremony. Customers still carried broken equipment through the gate, but they kept glancing past my shoulder, as if hoping Father would step out, smile, and save the day. A week after the burial, Mother called us into the sitting room. The settee springs squeaked under our weight. She placed a key on the table, old brass dull with fingerprints. "Your father left instructions," she said, voice steady from effort. "A box sits in the workshop. We will open it together." We walked out under the mango tree, the shade cool over concrete. The box waited on the highest shelf, wrapped in brown paper and sealed with tape. Keen climbed a ladder, lifted it down, and held it like it might change shape. Mother used the key. Inside lay a typed document, a small black notebook, and a photograph of our family taken the year the roof leaked, and Father insisted we patch it ourselves to learn the roof's language. The document carried a title that looked too formal for our life: Last Will and Testament. I watched Mother breathe, then unfold it. My father's words were crisp. "To my wife, Adiz, the house, my savings, and all instruments in the workshop. To my children, Keen, Amara, and Zara, equal shares in Chike Power Works, including any debts or profits, with one condition: no sale or transfer for 12 months. Learn the business. Work side by side. Decide after 1 full year." Mother read it aloud twice. The condition landed like a stone tossed in water, ripples, then quiet. The notebook contained lists, suppliers, warranty notes, names of customers who never once paid late, names of others who needed grace. A short letter rested at the back. Children, a craft belongs to those who can carry it. Try carrying it. If it proves too heavy, lay it down gently and together. Dad. For a brief moment, something like sunlight touched the room. It felt like a path. We would honor his request, survive a year, and choose wisely. He nodded, jaw set. Zara wiped her eyes and whispered, "We can do this." We tried. Mornings began before dawn. Mother tuned pianos for free to keep students coming. I handled customers and invoices. Keen took repairs that scared me. Burned coils, cracked casings, melted wires that smelled like old storms. Zara created order out of chaos by cataloging parts, labeling drawers, color-coding cables. We made mistakes. We also made small victories. A church's generator roared back to life. A clinic's refrigerator held steady through an outage. A seamstress cried when her machine stopped chewing fabric and started sewing again. During those months, something changed in my brother. Praise began sticking to him like glitter. Customers started asking for him by name. A contractor slipped him an envelope for speed and loyalty. And I saw a light in Keen's eyes that wasn't about workmanship. He started staying out late, returning with cologne that smelled expensive and excuses that sounded practiced. When I mentioned the 12-month rule, he brushed it off. "Rules are tools," he said. "You use them until a better tool arrives." Zara changed too, but in the opposite direction. She saved every receipt, tracked expenses with quiet obsession, and kept asking if we should consider expanding into sales. "Repairs are good," she said, "but new units bring bigger margins." I asked where we'd get capital. She smiled in a way that made me uneasy. There are investors everywhere these days. People like energy stories. Mother carried her grief like a folded cloth in her pocket. Always there, rarely displayed. She worked, cooked, slept, prayed, and never once lectured us about anything except kindness. When neighbors pressed her to remarry, she answered with a gentle smile and returned to her students. Music still lived in her. It just sang softer. 3 months after the funeral, a man in a navy suit arrived at the gate with a briefcase that wanted to be noticed. He introduced himself as Mr. Okeke, representing a company exploring strategic acquisitions in the power sector. His handshake was eager, his words efficient, his smile shaped like opportunity. He praised our location, our brand reputation, our untapped potential, and then laid a figure on the table big enough to silence the birds outside. "Buyout," he said. "Cash. Immediate. We would retain the name, honor your father's legacy, and bring in modern equipment. You 3 could consult and earn without sweating. Your mother could rest." Rest. The most expensive word in the world. I reminded him about the clause. 12 months. He waved it away. "Clauses can be adjusted," he said lightly. "Families adapt, especially when offers honor the past and secure the future." Keen asked smart questions with a voice that betrayed hunger. Zara wore her calmest face, but her foot tapped beneath the table. Mother listened, then thanked him for visiting and asked for time to consider. He left a card that looked like it had never met dust. That night, the house felt crowded with silence. I cooked stew and nobody noticed the extra pepper. Keen kept checking numbers on his phone like he could bend them into a new destiny. Zara stared at the ceiling and said she was tired of patching other people's machines instead of building something that could feed us properly. I wanted to argue. Instead, I washed plates and prayed our family would find the year our father asked us to hold. 2 weeks later, I arrived at the workshop early to prepare for a delivery. My key wouldn't turn. The lock had been changed. I knocked, confused. Keen opened the door and stepped outside, closing it behind him. "What's going on?" I asked. He didn't meet my eyes. "We're restructuring," he said. "You've been underpricing. You delay decisions." Investors want clarity. Investors? My throat tightened. What investors? We agreed. We agreed to survive, he snapped, and then lowered his voice as if it might bruise. You and your sentimentality will drown us. Zara appeared behind him, face pale but set. We're signing a partnership, she said. You can stay on salary till the transition completes. After that, we'll see. A paper slid toward me, an interim arrangement that paid me to vanish politely. I felt heat rise behind my eyes and tasted metal. What about Dad's condition? Keen's mouth hardened. Dad is gone. We're here. We have to live. I looked from one sibling to the other and saw not villains, but frightened people mistaking speed for salvation. I also saw a choice that would bend the rest of our lives. I folded the paper without reading, put it back on the bench, and walked away because walking away was the only power I had left. On the path home, the town looked changed even though nothing had moved. Buses still groaned. Vendors still called out. A dog still chased a shadow. Yet every sound carried a sharper edge. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it comes dressed like progress and speaks gently while it rearranges your furniture. Mother sat at the table when I entered, hands around a cup gone cold. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. I sat across from her and felt the weight of what I couldn't fix settle where hunger usually lived. She reached across, placed her palm on mine, and held on. Storms test roofs, she murmured. They also reveal builders. That night, I lay awake and listened to the distant buzz of generators. Our neighborhood, like our family, kept running on borrowed power. Dawn would come whether I slept or not. Somewhere out there, signatures waited, pens ready, promises shiny. The year my father requested had shrunk to months we might not reach. I decided on one thing before sleep finally found me. I would not let confusion write our story. If I lost a family, it wouldn't be because I never fought for clarity. I would ask for meetings. I would demand explanations. I would look under every clean sentence for the stain it tried to hide. And if the storm still took everything, it would meet me standing. Mother's words, storms test roofs, they also reveal builders, echoed in my chest long after sleep finally caught me. By morning, the storm had already begun to tear at our roof. Keen and Zara moved fast. The buyout conversation that had started with whispers now lived in every corner of the house. They spoke in lowered voices over phone calls, nodded to visitors in suits, and exchanged glances that shut me out before I even entered a room. I asked for a family meeting. We sat in the sitting room, the same place Father once gathered us to pray. My voice trembled, but I spoke anyway. Dad gave us 12 months. We're barely at 3. Why are you both rushing into a deal behind my back? Keen leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes burning with impatience. Amara, you don't see the world the way it is. Opportunity doesn't wait for anniversaries or rules. Investors want this now, not next year. This is how wealth is built. Zara crossed her arms, her voice calmer but sharper. Don't twist this like betrayal. We're securing a future Dad never gave us. He worked till his last breath and left us debts disguised as loyalty. I won't live patching engines while others eat steak from our sweat. Their words stung more than any slap. To them, Father's sacrifice had become a burden, not a gift. I turned to Mother for support, but she remained silent, eyes fixed on the floor. Her silence was louder than their arguments. That was the moment I knew. I was alone in this fight. The weeks that followed confirmed it. Keen stopped sleeping at home. Zara started meeting Mr. Okeke in broad daylight, no longer hiding. Papers appeared on the dining table, contracts, projections, strategic agreements. I was treated like a tenant, not a sister. Still, I refused to give up. I went through Father's black notebook, tracing his handwriting for clues, reading customer lists as though they held weapons. One name caught my attention. Bar. Madhu. Confidential. The number scribbled beside it was still in service. When I dialed, an older man answered. His tone was firm, clipped, professional. Yes. My name is Amara Chaik, I said quickly. My father mentioned you in his records. He passed away. I think he trusted you with something. A long silence. Then, meet me tomorrow at my office. Bring the will. I barely slept. By sunrise, I carried the document like it was my last piece of armor. Barrister Madhu's office smelled of paper and polish. He was gray-haired, serious, with a voice that carried weight. After scanning the will, he placed it down carefully. Your father was cautious, he said. He gave me instructions years ago. He suspected that greed might one day test his children. My chest tightened. What instructions? The lawyer leaned closer. This will is binding. Unless all 3 heirs agree to sell, no sale can proceed until the 12 months are over. If someone tries to tamper with it, there are legal consequences. But Amara, his eyes sharpened, you must stay vigilant. Greed does not always wait for legal doors. Sometimes it enters through the window. That same evening, Keen stormed into my room, waving papers. What did you tell the lawyer? He shouted. I froze. I only asked about Dad's condition. You've tied our hands. Do you want us to live in poverty forever? His rage filled the room like fire. Zara stood behind him, eyes avoiding mine. She didn't speak, but her silence chose a side. That night, for the first time, I locked my door. The whispers in our home had turned into thunder, and I realized something chilling. My family wasn't just planning to sell without me. They were preparing to erase me entirely from Father's legacy. The storm had only begun. By the 4th month, the workshop no longer felt like Father's. The mango tree still stretched its arms over the roof, but inside, everything had shifted. Keen replaced Father's wooden shelves with shiny steel racks. Zara brought in men with clipboards who measured walls and took photographs. My father's grease-stained bench, the heart of his craft, disappeared without warning. One morning, I arrived to find a bold sign outside, Blue Core Energy Limited. The family name was gone. I confronted them in the office, voice shaking. What is this? Who gave permission to erase Dad's name? King didn't look up from his laptop. Investors wanted a modern brand. We agreed. We? My throat went dry. Who is we? Because I never agreed to this. Zara folded her arms. Amara, don't make this harder than it is. Dad's dream was survival. We're taking it further. You should be proud. Proud. My father's name had been buried twice, once in the ground and again on that signboard. The final blow came 2 weeks later. I returned home to find Mother, Keen, and Zara sitting with Mr. Okeke. A stack of papers lay on the table. They all looked up as if I had walked into a courtroom where the verdict was already decided. Mother's eyes were red. She avoided mine. Keen slid a document toward me. Sign this. It confirms you're stepping down from any claim. You'll receive compensation. Enough to live quietly. Don't drag this out. My chest tightened. Compensation? This isn't a business dispute. This is betrayal. Dad trusted us to keep this together for a year. And you? I glared at each of them, my voice cracking. You've sold him for coins. Zara's patience snapped. Don't be dramatic. You're clinging to a ghost while we're building a future. If you won't join, at least stop blocking us. Mr. Okeke cleared his throat, his voice oily. Young lady, refusing will only create tension. Think wisely. I pushed the papers back across the table. My hands trembled, but my words were steady. I won't sign. Not today, not ever. That night, I discovered just how far my siblings were willing to go. My access to the workshop accounts was revoked. My keys no longer worked on the gates. Even Mother, who once held the balance of our home, turned cold. She began echoing their reasoning, speaking of progress and moving forward. It dawned on me. They had not only cut me out of the business, they had begun cutting me out of the family itself. The betrayal wasn't loud. No knives, no shouting matches in the street. It was worse. It was calculated, signed with pens, sealed with stamps, and carried out by people who once shared my blood and laughter. That was the night I realized my family wasn't protecting Father's legacy. They were burying me inside it. But storms don't end at betrayal. They test how long you can stand before the roof caves in. And I wasn't ready to fall. The morning after I refused to sign away my father's legacy, I woke to silence that felt heavier than noise. Mother didn't call me for breakfast. Keen's laughter echoed faintly from the courtyard, mixed with Zara's voice, but when I stepped into the sitting room, both of them stopped talking as if I were a stranger trespassing. I wasn't just excluded from business. I was exiled from family. At the workshop gate, a new guard blocked me. He didn't meet my eyes when he said, "I was told you're not allowed in." The words cut deeper than if he had shouted. Behind him, I could see the shelves, the machines, the faint outline of Father's bench now shoved into a corner like an embarrassment. I stood there until my legs numbed. Then I walked away, not because I accepted defeat, but because dignity demanded I wouldn't beg for entry into what was already mine. Bills piled up. Without access to the workshop's accounts, I had no income. My friends grew distant. Nobody wanted to be caught in family issues. Some neighbors whispered that I was reckless, others that I was cursed. Hunger visited often, and pride forced me to hide it. There were nights I drank only water so that Mother wouldn't see my plate empty. Worst of all was the loneliness. It wasn't just losing business or comfort. It was the look in Mother's eyes, tired, detached, almost accusing, as if I had chosen shame over loyalty. One evening, I found Father's black notebook under my pillow. Someone had placed it there quietly. Maybe Mother, maybe no one at all. On the back page, beneath lists of parts and debts, I noticed a phrase scribbled faintly. Character feeds longer than bread. The words hit me harder than hunger. Bread fills stomachs. Character fills years. That night, instead of tears, I opened the notebook wide and began calling old customers. Some hung up. A few recognized my voice and agreed to let me fix smaller machines from their homes. I carried tools in a second-hand bag, working under sun and rain, charging little, but earning trust. With every repaired sewing machine, every humming fan, I felt Father standing behind me, whispering that not all storms destroy. Some storms plant seeds. Meanwhile, news of Keen and Zara's success spread fast. They drove shiny cars, dressed in polished suits, and threw parties that echoed through the neighborhood. Their faces appeared in newspapers beside words like youth entrepreneurs and energy trailblazers. I should have felt envy. Instead, I felt pity. Their smiles looked heavy, stretched thin over something fragile. But envy or pity didn't matter. What mattered was survival. Each day I stitched my life together with scraps of work and the quiet determination that I would not let betrayal define me. Still, at night, when the noise faded and I was alone in my narrow room, the ache returned. I had lost not just wealth, but family, and that loss bled deepest. I didn't know it yet, but while I struggled to hold my life together with character and scraps, cracks had already begun forming in the empire my siblings built on greed. The storm was turning, and it wasn't in their favor. Success has a sound. The clink of glasses, the thud of new shoes, the hum of engines bought too quickly. For Keen and Zara, success screamed loud enough for the whole town to hear. Their blue-core energy office glowed with tinted glass and spinning air conditioners, and their names sat on glossy flyers like they were already legends. But wealth gained too fast doesn't build walls. It builds mirrors that crack at the first storm. It began with late payments. Contractors who had rushed to partner with them suddenly stalled. Machines imported at high cost broke down without warning. The sleek SUVs that impressed neighbors also swallowed fuel and repair bills like hungry beasts. Keene brushed it off. "It's just the teething stage," he said, standing in tailored suits that made him look taller than his confidence. But at night, whispers of unpaid loans reached the same community he once impressed. Zara, sharper with numbers, noticed the debts rising. "We're bleeding money," she warned. "If we don't slow down, we'll choke." But pride is louder than reason. Keene hosted another launch party instead. The very unity they used against me began to rot. Keene accused Zara of being stingy, too cautious. Zara accused Keene of reckless spending. Their arguments spilled into public, into offices, even into church pews where whispers replaced hymns. Neighbors who once admired them began to gossip. "The siblings are fighting. Money is eating them alive. They'll scatter soon." They didn't need me to expose them. Their own greed was enough. The breaking point came with a scandal. One of their biggest contracts, powering a new shopping complex, failed spectacularly when their imported generator caught fire. Customers screamed, smoke filled the air, and newspapers carried headlines the next day. Blue Core energy disaster, negligence or fraud. Investors withdrew. Banks demanded repayments. Former allies pretended not to know them. Their shining empire cracked in one night, and through those cracks poured shame, lawsuits, and debts too heavy to carry. While they fought creditors and hid from reporters, I was fixing a seamstress's old Singer machine in her backyard. Payment came in coins and gratitude. My clothes smelled of oil and smoke, but my hands held dignity. I realized then, I had lost wealth, comfort, even family, but I hadn't lost myself. My father's words whispered louder than ever. Character feeds longer than bread. And while my siblings' empire crumbled like a house built on sand, my foundation, though small, stood steady. The storm was shifting, and it was about to deliver its harshest blow yet. Not to me, but to those who chose greed over blood. When greed builds a throne, it never lasts long before the floor beneath gives way. For Keene and Zara, the fall was sudden, merciless, and public. Banks that once rolled out carpets now sent letters stamped in red. Debts swelled like floodwaters. Cars parked proudly at the gate were seized by auctioneers. The house where they had hosted lavish dinners echoed with unpaid bills and whispered blame. One afternoon, men in dark suits arrived with documents and cold eyes. Neighbors gathered outside, pretending to go about chores while secretly watching the drama. Furniture was carried out, one piece at a time. By evening, the house was stripped bare. Keene raged at the officers. Zara wept silently in a corner. The empire they built with stolen trust had collapsed into dust before the whole community. The same neighbors who once praised them now muttered curses. Market women shook their heads, whispering, "Greed brings no blessing." Old friends crossed the road to avoid greeting them. Even church members kept their distance, unwilling to be tainted by scandal. They hadn't just lost wealth. They had lost honor, the currency father valued above all else. It was in that season of disgrace that I met them again. I had just finished repairing a small generator for a clinic when I saw Keene standing by the roadside, clothes wrinkled, pride dimmed. Zara stood beside him, clutching a handbag too old for her once proud image. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Zara's voice broke the silence. "Amara, we were wrong." Keene looked at me, eyes hollow. "We thought money was everything. Now we can't even afford bread." The bitterness in me wanted to turn away, to remind them of nights I went hungry while they feasted. But another voice, quieter, heavier, whispered father's lesson. Character feeds longer than bread. I sighed. What you built was never solid. Father warned us. You chose greed instead of unity. But storms don't last forever. If you want to rise again, you must start with truth. Their fall was complete. Their wealth gone, their reputation shattered, their pride broken. Yet, strangely, I felt no triumph. Their downfall didn't heal my wounds. It only reminded me that family, once fractured, leaves scars that wealth can never mend. Still, the storm was not done. A twist awaited. One father had prepared for long before any of us knew we'd need it. And it would change everything. The storm had passed, leaving wreckage everywhere. My siblings walked through the village with lowered heads, shadows of who they once were. People pointed, whispered, and laughed. But I didn't. Betrayal had hurt me, yes, but watching them crumble under the weight of their own greed hurt in a different way. One morning, a letter arrived from Barrister Madu. I was to appear at his office immediately. My chest tightened. I feared more trouble. Instead, he placed a sealed brown envelope on the table. "Your father left a contingency," he said. He suspected greed might test this family. He prepared another document, to be revealed only if his instructions were broken before the 12 months passed. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper. My father's words were there, strong as ever. If unity fails, if greed divides, then the inheritance shall rest with the child who chose truth over wealth. My workshop, my house, and all remaining assets belong to the one who endured betrayal but refused to betray. My breath caught. The will was clear. Everything, what remained of our home, the workshop, even the little savings untouched by investors, now belonged to me. When I returned home, Keen and Zara were there, their clothes worn, eyes hollow. Mother sat quietly in the corner, unable to meet my gaze. I placed the document on the table. "This is Father's final word," I said softly. Keen's lips trembled. Zara covered her face with her palms. For once, there was no argument, no shouting. Only silence heavy with regret. "You have every right to throw us out," Zara whispered. "We deserve it." I looked at them, my own blood, broken not by my hand, but by their choices. Anger rose in me, but so did something else. Father's voice reminding me that storms test roofs, but they also reveal builders. I could have turned away, left them to sleep on the streets, made them feel every ounce of pain they had inflicted. But vengeance would only make me their mirror. Instead, I said, "You lost everything chasing wealth. I gained nothing but still held on to truth. Father wanted us to carry his name with honor, not bury it. I won't erase you, but if you want a second chance, you will work beside me, without lies, without shortcuts." Keen bowed his head. Zara wept openly. Even Mother, silent for so long, finally whispered, "Forgive them, Amara. Forgive us." And so, the workshop reopened, not as Blue Core Energy, but as Chike Works once again. The sign bore our family name, carved in bold. Customers returned slowly, drawn not by wealth, but by trust. Keen labored quietly, stripped of pride. Zara handled accounts with precision, but no arrogance. Mother, humbled, began singing again, her voice trembling but healing. As for me, I carried Father's notebook everywhere. Each page reminded me that the true inheritance wasn't money or machines, but character. Months later, when people asked about our story, they expected bitterness. Instead, I smiled and said, "My family betrayed me for money. But in losing everything, we found what was worth more than gold. Betrayal was our fire. Redemption was our rebirth."